In 1967, The Graduate shocked Hollywood and changed cinema forever. But did you know this classic movie hides some of the weirdest secrets ever? For example, Dustin Hoffman was almost rejected for not looking like a typical leading man, and the role of Mrs. Robinson nearly went to someone completely unexpected. Today, I'm revealing 20 bizarre facts about The Graduate that you've probably never heard before. But before we dive in, tell me in the comments, do you think The Graduate would have been just as iconic without Dustin Hoffman? 1. Dustin Hoffman was almost rejected. When Dustin Hoffman auditioned for The Graduate, studio executives thought he was completely wrong for the role of Benjamin Braddock. He wasn't considered handsome enough and didn't fit the Hollywood image of a leading man in the 1960s. Hoffman even recalled being nervous and sweaty during his audition, which made things worse. But director Mike Nichols saw something special in him. His awkwardness and nervous energy perfectly matched the character of Benjamin, who feels lost and uncomfortable in his own skin. Ironically, the very reasons Hoffman was seen as unfit for the role became the exact qualities that made his performance iconic. Without him, the film would have been a very different story. 2. Anne Bancroft was only 6 years older. One of the strangest facts about The Graduate is the age difference between Dustin Hoffman and Anne Bancroft, who played the seductive Mrs. Robinson. On screen, Bancroft's character is portrayed as a much older, experienced woman having an affair with a young, confused college graduate. But in reality, Anne Bancroft was just 6 years older than Hoffman. At the time of filming, Hoffman was 29 and Bancroft was 35. With the help of clever makeup, lighting, and acting, Bancroft was transformed into a much more mature, intimidating presence. This shocking age gap revelation shows how much of the film's scandalous tension was created not by reality, but by perception and brilliant filmmaking. 3. The famous leg poster wasn't Anne Bancroft. The iconic poster of The Graduate, showing Dustin Hoffman framed by a woman's bare leg, became one of the most recognizable movie posters in history. But here's the twist. It wasn't Anne Bancroft's leg. Instead, the leg belonged to model Linda Gray, who later became famous for starring in the TV show Dallas. At the time, Gray was paid just $25 for her modeling work on the poster. She later joked that her leg became the most famous leg in Hollywood. It's fascinating to think that one of the most enduring symbols of this classic film didn't even involve the actress who played Mrs. Robinson. A perfect example of Hollywood's little behind-the-scenes tricks. 4. The role of Benjamin almost went to Robert Redford. Before Dustin Hoffman was chosen, director Mike Nichols considered Robert Redford for the role of Benjamin Braddock. Redford was already a rising star, but Nichols quickly realized he was too confident and charming to convincingly play the awkward, insecure graduate. When Nichols asked Redford if he had ever struck out with a girl, Redford replied, "What do you mean?" which was a clear sign that he had never struggled with shyness. That moment convinced Nichols that Redford couldn't embody the role. So Hoffman got the part instead, and it became his breakthrough role. It's hard to imagine The Graduate without Hoffman, but for a moment, Hollywood nearly cast one of its golden boys. 5. Simon & Garfunkel's music was almost rejected. The Graduate is remembered just as much for its music as its story, especially Simon & Garfunkel's haunting songs like The Sound of Silence. But believe it or not, the studio originally wanted to reject this music. Director Mike Nichols, however, was deeply moved by the duo's sound and fought to keep their songs in the film. The music didn't just set the mood. It became an essential part of the storytelling, reflecting Benjamin's confusion and disillusionment. The Sound of Silence, in particular, gave the film a timeless, haunting quality. Without Simon & Garfunkel, The Graduate might not have achieved the same iconic status it enjoys today. 6. The ending wasn't originally planned. The famous ending, where Benjamin and Elaine run away together on a bus, wasn't scripted the way it turned out.
Originally, the film was supposed to end on a triumphant note, with the two smiling and celebrating their escape. But director Mike Nichols decided to keep the camera rolling a little longer. As Dustin Hoffman and Catherine Ross sat on the bus, their excitement faded into uncertainty. Nichols loved this unscripted moment. It perfectly captured the idea that life doesn't end with a happily ever after, but with confusion about what comes next. This accidental ending became one of the most iconic and realistic conclusions in movie history. 7. Mrs. Robinson's leopard print became iconic. Anne Bancroft's wardrobe in the film, particularly her leopard print outfits, became a lasting symbol of her character's boldness and seduction. Costume designer Patricia Zipbrod wanted Mrs. Robinson to stand out as powerful and predatory, contrasting Benjamin's innocent youth. The leopard print theme subtly emphasized her role as a hunter, preying on Benjamin's vulnerability. Decades later, the style remains associated with dangerous glamour. In fact, Mrs. Robinson's leopard print look has been referenced countless times in fashion and pop culture. This costume choice was more than just clothing. It visually told the audience everything they needed to know about her character. A bold and unforgettable fashion statement. 8. The film almost had a different title. Believe it or not, The Graduate almost wasn't called The Graduate. Early on, producers considered keeping the title of Charles Webb's original novel, but there were talks of changing it to something more scandalous or eye-catching. Suggestions like, "Here's to you, Mrs. Robinson," or even "The Affair" floated around. Ultimately, they decided to keep it simple and stick with The Graduate, which perfectly captured Benjamin's life stage and set the tone for the film's themes of uncertainty after college. Can you imagine the movie being remembered under a different name? It just wouldn't have had the same timeless ring. 9. Catherine Ross almost got fired. Catherine Ross, who played Elaine Robinson, nearly lost her role before filming even finished. She often clashed with director Mike Nichols, who thought she wasn't taking the job seriously. At one point, Ross was even banned from set when she wasn't scheduled to shoot, because Nichols didn't want her distracting the crew. Despite this tension, Ross delivered a natural and heartfelt performance that became a perfect contrast to the fiery chemistry between Hoffman and Bancroft. Ironically, the tension off-screen may have helped her portray Elaine's conflicted feelings on-screen. Sometimes, behind-the-scenes drama ends up adding more realism to the final product. 10. The movie almost boosted college enrollments. After The Graduate became a huge hit, universities noticed a strange trend. College enrollments started increasing. The film's story of a young man struggling after graduation strangely inspired many young people to value education even more. Benjamin's journey might have been about confusion and disillusionment, but audiences connected with the struggles of young adulthood. Some critics even argued that the film spoke directly to America's youth during the 1960s, who felt trapped between traditional expectations and their own independence. While The Graduate wasn't exactly a motivational film, it ended up shaping how a whole generation thought about growing up and finding their place in the world.